One.
Hello, welcome to the
Go
Women's
for
Cave.
it,
Thank
Jake.
you,
I
Winona,
always
for
feel
letting
like
me
it.
have it because,
I'm letting you have it because all of a sudden I was doing some reconstruction work. I don't know.
What is reconstruction?
Reconstruction work? I was doing some remodeling, so I'm putting in a new floor, and somehow I touched my floor and I touched my face, and now my face is burning, and I'm very confused as to what happened.
Well, probably because you're taking up old carpet.
That's true.
Oh,
I
Nona.
don't know what to do. So if you guys see me keep touching my face during this interview, it's because I'm like, why is it still burning?
Because you need to take a Benadryl.
Oh, well, maybe I will leave mid-interview. Tanya, ask some questions mid-interview, and I'll take a Benadryl.
Sorry. I'm Jade, though.
And I'm Winona with the burning face.
Oh, my goodness. And not of embarrassment, and it should be. It should be burning of embarrassment, but it's not.
No, it's burning because I'm just so hot. Okay, moving on. I can say that because our guests can't see us. Anyway.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, we wrote literary life guides with pop poetry. Let's see. So I guess some people would call them poetry anthologies. And I have to accept that now because we did have a #1 release in Amazon in that category. And it is The Woman's Cave and Other Pop Poems, a Misfit Guide. So you can check that one out. Also, And I Thought Divorce Was Bad with Other Life Lessons. And I Thought Being Grown Up Was Easy. And we're going to go with Only Our Me, a memoir in verse. Yeah. You can check out everything your ladies are doing on www.andwethought.com. We have a co-host today.
I love how she's moving it along really quickly. Go ahead.
Let's introduce you.
And on that note, my name is Tanya Todd. I'm an author and actress from Las Vegas.
Fabulous.
Nice. She now just leaves off educational chair.
And well, she does it sometimes, and I like it, but it doesn't really matter.
No, that's true. Anyway, that's not important. Any of the things that we're saying right now, not as
important as our wonderful guest. Wonderful guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jenn Northington, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Looking forward to talking to you. And so I'm supposed to say some things about myself. I have been working in books in various capacities basically since 2004. So I can't believe it's been 16 years, but that's true. Another true thing is that over the past week, I have been using eggnog as creamer in my coffee because I'm getting into the holiday spirit that way. Let's see what else. Oh, and I'm currently the manager of editorial operations and a podcaster for Book Riot.
Nice.
So yeah, she's doing some amazing things. This is why we have a co-host today, because she has some good questions for you.
You know the co-host shows up when we're like, "Oh, that's a really big name. We should share that load."
And also, that's like we did Tanya once or twice a week. We're like, Matt, we can't go to Vegas. We want to see Tanya. Tanya, I know you have some questions.
I do. So I was checking out your site, and I see you have some very big names associated with Swordstone Table. How did your project get started? How did you find such notable contributors?
Well, so Swordstone Table, which is an anthology that'll come out in July of 2021, it's a collection of diverse, queer, neurodivergent, race-bent, gender-bent King Arthur stories. And that collection came out of just me wanting those stories. I've been a King Arthur nerd since I was a little kid, but I found that I was just not seeing, there's all kinds of retellings out there, right? We've gotten a lot of books over the past, few years that are retellings of Greek myths or, all kinds of stuff. But I wasn't seeing any of the King Arthur stuff that I wanted to see. So I was like, well, maybe other people have written or want to write something, and maybe they'll let me help them publish it. So my good friend Swapna Krishna and I pitched it to an agent, and then it got pitched to a publisher, and then we started asking authors if they would be interested in being part of it. And both of us have been in books for a pretty long time, and so we were lucky enough to have connections to some people. We were very lucky in that other people helped us connect to then other people. But yeah, I was actually amazed at how many big names said yes to us. Quite frankly, I was not expecting some of those asks. I think you've probably experienced this as an event coordinator. You send the ask, but you don't necessarily bank on getting a yes. Right. So when those yeses come back, it's always really exciting. Yeah.
Yes, we
And
do.
so-
We do a happy dance over here when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Celebration.
This year when a Pulitzer nominee said yes to us, we danced for days.
We did. We really did.
Yes.
Look at it.
I do more of a silent squee. It's like, I'm not that girl. I don't make that
Yeah.
noise, but it's in there, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
So that is amazing that you have made room for other voices.
And that was an
publishing.
undertaking.
And that is definitely an undertaking. Definitely. And congrats on that, by the
Yes,
way. And then I want to ask about your
Thank you.
because that is like, you've been around publishing for a while, according to your biography. So I was like,
Yeah.
to go into the audio and step away from the written word and go into the audio field. How did you feel nervous? And if you did, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so I was lucky in that my first exposure to podcasting came as an independent project that was actually my friend's idea. I think I'm trying to remember when Bookrageous started. I guess it was probably 2010 or so. I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't. But my good friend Josh Christie, who is a bookseller who now owns a bookstore in Maine called Print, he was super into audio and podcasts and all of these things. And he and our other friend, Rebecca Shinsky, who also works for Book Riot now, this was like when we were all still bookselling babies. Like we were younger and we had less responsibilities and more creative energy and all of those things. But Josh was like, let's do a podcast. Let's just talk about books with each other. And I was like, okay, I just barely knew what a podcast was. So Josh really wrangled that and paved the way for that project to move forward and develop the way it did. And it was honestly, because it was so low stakes for me, like I didn't have to do any of the editing. I didn't have to, worry about like mic discipline or any of that. I just showed up on Skype a couple times a month. So that was actually a really gentle introduction into podcasting. And then, I started doing more of the podcast work once I got hired at Book Riot and became a co-host as well as a behind-the-scenes manager, and quickly learned like it's really complicated. It's a lot of work. So I was lucky. I got to dip my toe in the water before being fully submerged.
Okay, so we've talked about this podcast. And is it like the podcast that has no name, or does it have a name?
Well, so the first podcast that I was on was called Bookrageous, and that is not in, it's not still in production. It's done. R.I.P. Bookrageous. It was a lot of fun, but our schedules got kind of wild and we couldn't sustain it anymore. And then for Book Riot, I'm on 2 podcasts right now. I do the Get Booked podcast with Amanda Nelson, and that's a write-in recommendation show. Folks write in and ask us all kinds of questions about what books they should read next or for their book club or whatnot, and we find good picks for them. And then I'm on the SFF Yeah podcast because, we've already talked about King Arthur. I'm a book nerd and, mythology, sci-fi, fantasy, Star Trek, Star Wars nerd. So Sharifa Williams and I talk about all things science fiction and fantasy on that one. And then this is like what happens, I guess, is they just breed other projects. I actually just started a podcast with a good friend of mine, Preeti Chibber, who's a writer, including she writes books for Marvel, like for Spider-Man and for Star Wars. She's amazing. And we just started a podcast about The Wheel of Time, which is a book series that's coming to Amazon as a TV show next year. And so we're rereading the books together, and we decided to do it as a podcast.
Wow.
So I have 3, I guess, ongoing right now. Yeah, it's a lot.
No, we understand that. We understand it.
Once you start, you're like, well, now I have to start another one. And now I have to, because
Yeah.
Because you start talking about other subjects on their first podcast, you're like, this doesn't truly fit. I need another one.
Mm-hmm.
Your podcasts are pretty short. What contributed to your decision to go with that kind of format?
It's 45 minutes short. Is that?
Oh, I guess I just saw the clips then, because I was listening to Get Booked, and you have like 6 and 7 minute videos there. And then when I went to SFF, yeah, those are still only like 4 to 7 minutes.
Yeah, so what we do is we have some alternating short ones with the longer ones. So the full shows are like 45 minutes, But then we do have these like 6 to 10 minute little ones that are just a single book recommendation, or one or two, depending. If for Get Booked, the Hand Sell, which is what we call those shorter episodes, are just one recommendation. And for SFF, Backlist to the Future are 2 recommendations of books that are older and like maybe aren't getting as much love because, you know, they're not new and shiny anymore. And that really came out of both listener interest and, you know, it's like you said, it's like, oh, I want to talk about these other things, but there's not always enough time or it doesn't fit. So it's like, well, let's just throw a little 6-minute extra in there.
I'm glad I asked, because that means I need to go back and find out where to see the full episodes of these shows.
Well, now that you said that, where can people see the full episodes of these shows?
Yeah, so they're all on Apple Podcasts. But if you go to bookriot.com/listen, and that's BOOKRIOT, there are all of our podcasts. Book Riot as a whole has like 12, I think, 10 or 12. And all of the shows are listed there with all of their episodes.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. We really appreciate it.
I have a question because I want to know all the cool jobs you did in publishing.
Yeah, so I started out as a bookseller. I graduated college and didn't know what to do with my history degree, as is, I think, pretty common. And I thought, well, I like books. Like, let me get a job working in a bookstore for a little while I figure out if I want to go back to grad school or like, you know, what do I want to do? Do I want to become a teacher? I don't know. And so I started working for Borders, actually, RIP Borders. And I liked it, but I didn't really like being in a corporate store. So then I begged this local independent bookstore to hire me, and they did. And then that turned into a whole career in bookselling. I was in bookselling until 2015 when I got hired by Book Riot. So at bookstores, I did a lot of different things. I did shelving, I worked the registers, I cleaned the bathrooms, and I also booked events. So I got to interact with a lot of amazing authors and, customers that way. And that was really fun. And then Book Riot hired me in part to do some event work for them, and then also to do, unknown other things that would develop as my job came along, which is how, 5 years later, now I am managing podcast production. Like, it just kind of evolved. It wasn't really a planned evolving. It was just kind of like, for each job I had, for each different bookstore I worked for, or, now with Book Riot, it's like, if you're a company that's growing, what you need on any given day or month or year changes. And I've been fortunate that my bosses have been flexible about, me learning new skills and trying that out, or, saying, hey, I do have this skill. Can I do that for this? And, them saying yes. So I've been really lucky in having good bosses. Oh, it really is. It really is. To be able to change and grow inside of a job is a real blessing.
I really love how you said at some point you cleaned bathrooms too. So you're like, I really did start.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I started at the bottom then.
But now I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do the dirty work too. It's part of the job. Everybody always thinks, I think about jobs in books that it's all you get to read all day. But I have literally not had a single job that would allow me to read during work hours in publishing. Like, you do not get to use your work time to read. You're doing all of the other things that make, books possible, which sometimes is cleaning the bathroom, and sometimes it's writing the email newsletter, and sometimes it's recording the podcast or producing the podcast. There's all kinds of other stuff that goes on. So
Tanya, do you have, before I ask another question, because I feel like I'm being greedy today, Tanya, do you have
Let's just alternate. I would like to know what the term citizen reader means to you, because, I use the phrase literary citizen in the things that I try to do, but I came across citizen reader on your page, and I want to know, what does that mean and how did it shape your journey?
That is, nobody's ever asked me about that before. So you're the first person potentially even to notice. I like literary citizen, by the way. That's also a lovely phrase.
I got that from Jane Friedman, so it's not mine.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think it's a problem a lot of us have in the book world. It's like, how do I describe my relationship to books and publishing? And it's not just about the job, right? It's about, my love for books and the book world and like why it's important to me. And I think I came up with Citizen Reader because I really do feel like I want to be a good citizen of the book world. And when I say a good citizen, I mean somebody who's engaged and is, looking around to see like, yeah, what's going on? Like, who's getting light shined on them, who's not, what stories are being told, what stories are missing, who's at the table, who could be at the table, like all of those things that I try to also do as a citizen of, my city, my country, et cetera. Like I try to be involved and aware of what's going on so that then I can think about how I want to participate. And so for me, being a citizen reader means, asking those questions about what I'm reading, why I'm reading it, what's getting the love and what's not, and what I can do about it.
Well, judging by your posts and your book recommendations and everything that you're doing and this new book that you're creating, it's clear that you are achieving that mission. I mean, you're an activist. You're an activist for voices that aren't heard. So you're doing it. You're definitely doing it.
Thank you. I mean, it's a process, right? I try to keep in mind this is not something that like you can like graduate from or like you've achieved it. Like it's
Right,
always
yeah.
an ongoing practice, right? Like there's no end goal. It's always just
right, because you
another
can
day, another
share
day.
more, help more people, and and learn more. I
Well,
realized
exactly.
the people that I was championing, I was not thinking about ableist situations. Like I was a complete ableist, didn't realize it, didn't recognize it. And I took a class with Nevada Humanities, and it wasn't to shame anyone, it was to teach people. And I definitely learned from that process, like, oh, wow, there's this whole group of people that I didn't have anything against, but I wasn't thinking about them. And, I'm thinking about the people who aren't thinking about me. Well, I'm guilty too. So now it's something that I try to
Right.
incorporate in how I live my life and pay attention to and consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a white woman. I'm a cis woman. I have a chronic illness, but it's invisible and like pretty well managed. And I've been very fortunate in my career, like we talked about. So, it's for me, there's so many opportunities to learn and make sure that yeah, I'm paying attention to what's going on around me and what challenges others are facing. I'm also an intersectional feminist, so accessibility and different, how different marginalizations interact with each other is definitely something I'm always learning more about and trying to stay aware of.
Always steer toward these kind of causes, or is this something that developed over time and then you decided to use your platform?
That's a good question. I think I've been really fortunate in that people have nudged me in good directions in the past. And I think that I'm trying to think now. I think also, not for nothing, bookstores are a really interesting place to work because you do have a lot of power in that you are the person who, when somebody comes in and they're willing to ask for help finding something, like you are the person now who's going to put a book in their hands, right? So there's a lot you can do in those moments, and I think I wish I could say it was always an opportunity for me to practice that activism, but I don't think that's probably true. I think it probably has developed more, certainly over the past, decade, as I got more aware of the world around me and what was going on and what, what voices were not being heard. But, and certainly I'm like we've said, we're always learning more. So I always have more to learn. But I think it's been a development that I now am very conscious of and very much practicing consciously. But I think earlier it was like, it probably happened sort of on and off. And then I started to become more aware of the need to be aware of it.
Right. More cognizant of it and more purposeful in it.
Yeah. Yes.
This has been a great interview. Like, we knew it was going to be a great interview, and this has been a great interview. So I guess I get to ask my last two questions, right? So what advice would you give people that are like just starting to be authors?
With your background in being a bookseller, everyone would like to know how to sell their book. So can you give us a little bit of advice on how to sell our book?
And also, where can people find out?
Oh, yeah. Right. Okay. So that's three questions. Okay. So the first question is how to have a career in books. So, like I said, I got very lucky. I was able to find opportunities, and I think that it's a different field now, honestly. I don't want to be like doom and gloom about this, y'all, but like it is a different field now. It's not as easy to get, especially like good salaried positions. It's not as easy as it was once upon a time, but also there are more remote opportunities opening up because, it's real hard to make it in New York City, which is where a lot of publishing has traditionally been on a bookseller or like, entry level publishing salary. It's very difficult. I did not enjoy that. And so I would say, look for opportunities where you are. Don't discount remote opportunities because more of those are opening up as we all discover that we don't need to be there in person necessarily to get our jobs done. And yeah, keep an eye out. And I do think, a willingness to like clean the bathrooms or do the grudge work is good, but also don't sell yourself too short. Like you deserve to get paid like a human who has needs and has to pay rent. So try not to undersell yourself, I guess is my career advice for all of us. Okay, question number 2 was how to get your book sold. So yeah, but publishing is so complicated, y'all. Like it is not easy, first of all, to make a book, to get it in print and then get it into stores. It's not easy. That, a lot of indie bookstores, especially, are very willing to talk to you. If you're, local or not local, you call them up, you shoot them an email, say, hey, here's my book. Like, maybe you might be interested in stocking it on your shelf. And you can do that whether you're self-published or you're through, an Amazon press or you're with a traditional publisher. I think plenty of indies are very used to getting emails from folks saying, hey, please consider my book. And, they might pick you up on it. They might not, but you don't get on the shelf if you don't ask. So it's always good to ask. And then, is that an answer to the question? Was that the question?
Yeah, that was wonderful. The advice was ask. Don't be afraid. I like it.
Ask.
Okay. And the last question
is, good.
Where can people find you?
More about you and the podcast.
Yeah. Right, more about me and the podcast. So the best place to find me and all of my various projects these days is Instagram. So my account there is I am Jenn IRL. That's IAMJENNIRL. And I've got a link tree with links to all of the things in it.
Thank you so much for coming on today and taking some time out of your busy schedule. We really appreciate it.
I still can't believe that you said yes.
I know, right? We're still doing our happy dance over here. You can't see it, obviously, because we're trying to be professional, but know that there's a happy dance on the
You were a big.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Tanya, where can people find out more about you?
I am on social media at Ms. Tanya Todd and my website, www.mstanyatodd.com. That's Ms., not Miss.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that, Tanya. You can find out everything your ladies are doing on www.andwethought.com. While you're there, go to the homepage, check out the new podcasts that we have. The
Ladies Tale Podcast, where professional actors read my script. Okay. We can continue, Jay.
Every time. I should get used to it by now, y'all, and I'm still not used to it. All right. So you can go to the ladies tab, go down the middle. More importantly than all of that, go to the middle, see charities that we probably support. Maybe you can support them too, even if it's just with a kind note or adding them on social media and telling them thank you for doing this wonderful work in the world. We really appreciate it. Just remember that wisdom is all around you if
you're open to finding it and accepting it. So peace and love, you guys, from Winona
and Jade. Bye. Oh yeah, thanks for listening.